Loading. Okay. Hi guys, it's Scarlett here, and I'm here with Season 1 of PBA. I'm in TU Division, as a matter of fact, and I'm kind of drained right now, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I'm making this like a week late. Perfect. That's great. On track. Schedule. And this is already going up late, like, I'm delaying everything by at least a week or so, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, so that's great. That's a great start for me. But, yeah, I figured I should make the breakdown, very, I guess, quickly. This is an 8-player division with 4, so 32 players, 8 players in each division. Paldea decks only, so not post home. I think that's really it, right? I think that's about it. And terrestrializing, you have 30 points. And the terrestrializing cost is however much that mon is worth. So, for example, like Chi-Yu, I think was 20 or so points. So Chi-Yu would cost 20 points, and you could pick 2 types of Terra. One of them has to be a stab, and the other one cannot be a stab. So in that example, you could do like Chi-Yu Fire Grass, or Chi-Yu like Dark Water maybe, or something like that. I don't think Terra Blast is banned. I could be wrong, but that's about that, I think. And there's like around 120 points. I can't remember, but I'm gonna get into this. Make sure you like, subscribe, whatever. So first things first, I had the 8th pick, which is awesome because, like I just said, that's a wheel pick. Woohoo! That doesn't happen very often. If you know, you know. I wasn't keeping track, but mentally, like, I was kind of like keeping track, but not really, of how many times I've gotten a wheel pick. And I think before this draft and another draft, it was at least like 5, 6, or 7 in a row where I am either dead center or like 1 or 2 picks off. So, breath of fresh air to finally get an 8th pick, finally get a wheel pick so I can... What the fuck? So I can get... so I can get, synergy and all that fun stuff, I guess, whatever. So Roaring Moon's on the board, so I'm gonna take a Roaring Moon, obviously. I was definitely looking at Iron Bundle. I really want to try that one out, but might as well take a Roaring Moon. And with my next pick, I decided to take Great Tusk. I wanted to kind of lump these two together because this was really what I was trying to build around. I kind of regret it. I wish I went with something like Goldengo, which got picked after me, or just a special attacker that complemented Roaring Moon a little bit better, because Great Tusk is great. Obviously, it's Great Tusk, but I would kind of prefer to be like bouncing off of Roaring Moon. They can switch into each other, I think, pretty well, just because Roaring Moon has a lot of underrated SPDF and a decent HP stat, and Great Tusk is the opposite, a great HP stat, great defense stat, terrible SPDF. So they can kind of switch in well. One of them's Dragon Dark, one of them's Ground Fighting, so right there you already got some connections with the Dark Fighting core, Dark Fighting Psychic core, and yeah, I mean, cool shit. They're both strong. I know Roaring Moon gets D-Dance, I know it gets Taunt, I think it gets U-Turn, it gets decent coverage, I know it gets Iron Head for sure. Not bad. Definitely not a bad mon by any stretch of the imagination. Great Tusk, on the other hand, is a little bit of a weird pick because I know going into Draft League, I know a lot of people were high on Great Tusk, and I feel like that mentality is kind of like shifted a lot into Great Tusk is a really good like 2nd, 3rd round pick instead of being that 1st round pick, which I find a little interesting just like noting, I guess, things. I find it a little interesting how that's kind of shifted. I still think Great Tusk is a quality mon. I think it's definitely a first rounder. I don't know why that's up for debate at all. And some of the reasons why are the reasons why it's on this team. Hazards. In a very hazard-filled meta, Great Tusk has the bulk, can take hits, get up hazards, and do all that fun stuff. Second, bulk up. It's a great setup sweeper. And what also ties into that as well is rapid spin, which, if you don't know, there's been a ton of hazard removal debuffs, I guess. They've taken away rapid spin from a ton of mons. They've taken away defog from a ton of mons. So with both of those kind of in tandem, you kind of need a really good rapid spinner, or at least a good defogger, some way to remove hazards or prevent hazards. And Great Tusk definitely can get rid of hazards very efficiently. And as well as that, it goes Burr. I mean, it's a great offensive mon. 31 attack is insane. 87 speed, definitely a relatively slower mon. I think 100 is still that. 100 in this generation is like very fast. So 87's fast in this meta right now, but I don't think it's like insanely fast. I think you would still have to scarf it if you really want like a speed with it, but that's my personal take. But yeah, I just kind of want to build around these two. I know a very easy like thing is Psychic, because Roaring Moon immune, Great Tusk doesn't take well. Psychic's also a very special type, so a lot of mons that are going to be running Psychic are probably special, so Roaring Moon's a pretty solid switch into that. Just like some things I want to note, as well as Water. Water's another big one too. And I guess Grass. Yeah, so that's those first two picks. I was debating on whether doing it like this, but I figured maybe separating them into 3 and then 4 is probably better. So with this pick, I went Rotom Heat. I very rarely try to do something like this where I have like 2 mons at 1 speed tier, 2 mons a couple points apart, but unfortunately it kind of has, unless it's like, you know, like slow, very slow mons, but at this speed tier, I really did want to avoid this. However, I want to get a good ground immunity. I want to get some momentum because Roaring Moon's the only one with it. I want a good special wall. I want a good kind of utility mon where, not really, I mean, it has utility, but I want a mon that's kind of like, can fulfill a ton of roles if I need it to. Rotom Heat obviously can Scarf. Specs, Boots, those are the very common sets. Leftovers is also a very common one, and then from those sets you have sets like Willow Hex, you have, I think it just gets Thunderwave, so like Thunderwave Hex as well, you have Discharge, Nasty Plot, you have, I think they got rid of Pain Split for it, so I was going to say something, but obviously not. I don't know why I did that. Overheat, Nasty Plot, it does a ton, so I'm really glad I could have it on this team. And yeah, I mean, it just kind of pairs pretty well. It also gives me a, like, very low-key, a flying resistant, which I think is nice to have. Last generation there was a ton of like really good flying types, I think, with Torn and all the forms like Landorus and Thundurus and all that, but there's definitely a lot less good flying types. But the ones that are good, for example, Hawlucha, and I think even Flamigo can be in that discussion, and Braviary. I don't know if Braviary even got picked, but like mons like that are. It's nice to have at least a mon that can check it, not really wall or counter, but check it, and maybe force a switch. Let's say I'm like Scarf Rotom with defense investment, force a switch, all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted with Rotom Heat. And to add to another funny mon is Slowking. I don't even think this is a debate. I think last generation it definitely was whether Slowking or Slowbro was better. They're both relatively the same, the only difference being really that one is good SPDF, one is good physically. I think that's really the only difference. And I think this generation for sure we know which one's better, and that's Slowking. It's not really a discussion. Slowking still has a quote-unquote teleport with chilly reception. I didn't draft like Titan or anything like that, just because I didn't really think it fit very well with this team. But that could have been a mon I definitely could have taken. But other than that, I mean, Slowking can still play a ton of roles, even though it lost shit like Scald. It got obviously nerfed from Recovery and Psych-Off being APP. But even then, it has a decent special attack. I think it's 100, which is decent, or 110 or something. Very decent special attack, very good SPDF, so it's nice to have that. I think right here I was kind of like developing my cores. You obviously see a Fighting Dark Psychic core, which is probably my favorite one so far of this generation. It's very offensive because this meta is very offensive, so I like having that Fighting Dark Psychic core, especially because this is a lot more bulky of a Fighting Dark Psychic core compared to, I don't know, like even like Chiyu and mons like that. So happy to have that core done. Right now, I think I'm looking at like Water, Fire, Grass core maybe being complete. I think I got all of my cores done, which is probably a first for this generation, but yeah. So we're getting another special attacker, so that's 2 special attackers, 2 physicals. I want kind of that dichotomy at least a little bit, but I don't really have that special attacker yet. I don't really consider Rotom Heat and Slowking that. I don't know where I went with this thing. Tinkaton. Yeah, so that's the Fairy Dragon Steel core actually done. I've drafted Tinkaton, and it is also funny. Gigaton Hammer is insane of a move. I don't know why it even has it, but what? I mean, you know what I mean. Tinkaton gets rocks as well, which is really nice. It gets some really good utility options, and I think this generation utility is great, and I really like using utility, so I figured it's probably the best way to go. As well as that, I like Tinkaton as kind of same thing with like Rotom Heat, where it can play a ton of roles. Recently I've used this in a league where, and I can say this because I already recorded the battle and everything, I've used this where Chiempao, it just kind of like is there. This is a pretty decent wall. Fighting is neutral, which is Sacred Sword, and then Dark resists, and then Ice resists. So it can play a little bit of roles. I mean, it's not the best. You obviously aren't like Tinkaton hard counters Chiempao, but it's definitely a step above anything else. So Tinkaton, very solid. It also 94 is a pretty important speed tier, just because you see my speed tiers are kind of like really, these aren't very good speed tiers so far. And I don't think it objectively gets that much better. It, like, technically it does, but there's a lot of lumping here. So Tinkaton, very solid. And with my other wheel pick, I went with Tsarina. So 2 physical attackers, even though I just said I want a dichotomy, but I think it's important, like I said, to have a good spinner, and not just one, because I know from actual experience having Great Tusk as your only spinner, it's not really a good option because you can't really clear hazards that effectively. It's a great spinner. The issue is predictions exist. So I think having at least 2 spinners frees up a move spot on Great Tusk first off, and second off, having Tsarina as a spinner is definitely a good option. They're very similar. Tsarina and Great Tusk are very similar. They're both physical attackers, both have decent speed, pretty solid bulk. The difference with Tsarina is the special defense. Being able to have something that can just kind of switch in on, let's say, like a Gastrodon or Sandy Shocks or something like that. I know Great Tusk can switch in on Sandy Shocks technically, but it's not. You're not throwing Great Tusk out on a Sandy Shock. That's not, unless you're desperate and you're making a play or something, you're not going hard Great Tusk on Baby Shocks. That just doesn't happen. So having a mon that's kind of like being able to take those special attacks, really nice. So I'm really happy with Zarina. 72 is a pretty solid speed tier for this team because I have 86 is the slowest. Or not the slowest. 30 is the slowest, but 86 was the slowest after that. So bridging that gap a little bit is obviously what we're trying to do. So happy with it. It's also very varied. Zarina is a very varied mon where there's like a ton of things it could do: spin, turn, power whip. I think it gets bulk up sword stance or something. Substitute can kind of do a lot of different things. Close combat, high jump kick, something like that. Like very varied mon and all that good shit. So coming around this draft, like I said, special attackers must need, because literally my best one is Rotom Heat. And Rotom Heat's a good special attacker. That's not me dissing Rotom Heat. That's me saying Rotom Heat is not that guy. He's not number one, bro. He's not leading your team to a championship. If he's your number one special attacker, something's fucked up. That's all I gotta say. So I really want to get something that's at least better than Rotom Heat objectively. And with that pick, I believe it's this pick, I picked Trigalgy, which is a weird pick. Like, if you're looking at my team, this is a very weird pick, but I still like it. I think adaptability is very slept on, especially because I gave this thing 4 Terra types. So if you don't know how adaptability works with Terra, it's pretty much a 2.25 for Dragon Poison, which are its 2 stabs, and those 2 are being Terra'd. And then for its supporting ones, which I believe are Electric and Water, those are 2 times boosted. So instead of the Terra giving it a 1.5 for non-stab, it gives it just 2. So that's how that works, if you were curious. And it's kind of like I said, it's a weird mon to have on this team. Just as like a special attacker, like this is probably my best special attacker of the draft. And that's such a weird sentence to say, because you don't... I mean, very similar to Rotom Heat, if Trigalgy is your number one, you're not going to win the whole thing. And I don't think this team right now can win the whole thing unless I out-prep and get really good matchups in the playoffs, if I even make the playoffs. So yeah, Trigalgy, big special attacker, can also play Spadef role, giving me another Spadef tank. It's got a very decent defensive type. I wouldn't say it's a good defensive typing, but it's at least decent. You have things like a fighting resist. You also have things like fire, water, grass quad, electric, kind of that. Fairy's not super effective unless I Terra or something, so I like Trigalgy. It's probably going to come a lot of weeks just because it's my, like I said, best special attacker, so you can probably expect that thing coming. And then with my next pick, I went with Farigiraf. Farigiraf is a really interesting mon. I think it's 110, 70, 70 bulk, which is very interesting. I forget its special attack, but it has decent special attack, so it's a good tank in my eyes. It gives me a ghost resist, or not ghost resist, ghost immunity, which is really nice. Marine Moon already resists it, but having, you know, a mon like Slowking and not literally having no ghost resist besides Roaring Moon, which I'm not gonna bring in on Slowking, so it's nice to have a ghost resist, especially, or a ghost immunity, especially for Graph. It gets Wish support is really nice. I believe it gets Trick Room. I thought I'd mention that just because I have mons like Slowking already, and Slowking gets Trick Room. And I have a mon like Trigalgy, which is very slow, so it would benefit from Trick Room. I thought I'd just mention that. I don't know if it'll even come, but it's also a new mon, which I've been drafting a lot of new mons, and I think I've said a lot of times that I'm drafting new mons just kind of to draft them. If I think they fit well, I definitely will draft them. And I think Farigiraf fits decently, so I drafted it. It's also, you know, cool. It's a cool mon, so yeah, it's got decent stab, normal psychic. I mean, normal's not the best stab, but psychic is a very solid offensive stab. But it has good coverage. But I don't really have too much expectations with Turgraph. It's not a Terra Captain. If it was, it probably would be Psychic Fairy, just because Psychic gives me a good offensive stab, and then Fairy gives me a better Fairy type than Kingaton, and one that can hit, especially as opposed to physically. So that's that. Moving on to my 9th pick. What did I do here? Mismagius, yeah. So I was looking at my team. I don't have a Ghost type, and I think Ghost types are good. They're good offensively. And I didn't do the Terra until after. But I was also looking at speed tiers. That was another thing I was really trying to fix. As you can see, 94, 119 is a huge gap, so I figured might as well plug at least one mon in between. I didn't know if I could get a second mon, so I could do like 100, 110. I was trying to do that, but I could not find two mons that would fit. And Mismagius, as it is, barely fits on this team. So I gave Mismagius Terra Captain of Ghost Fairy. So right now we're looking at about 25 points spent on Terra Captains, because to get two more types you have to double them on. So Dragalge is 18 instead of 9, and then Mismagius is 12, so 25. Mismagius is a very interesting mon. It's obviously fast special attacker. It has but like okay SPDF HP, terrible HP defense, but that's fine. It's a ghost resist, or not a ghost. It's a poison resist. So I guess that's something. I mean, it hard walls. No, it doesn't. It doesn't even hard wall Grafefe, because he just, knockoffs and kills me, and that's it. But I gave his Magius Ghost Fairy because, did I already say I'm so? I gave it Ghost Fairy because Ghost goes Burr, and it just powers up Shadow Ball, and then Fairy because I want a good special attacker, and I think that's pretty obvious. That's about it. I don't really have a lot for Mismagius. I also haven't used this mon, which is kind of shocking, but whatever. And with the other pick, I think it was the last pick, right? This is the last pick, yeah. So the last pick, I didn't really know where I wanted to go. I was looking at kind of weaknesses, and I was like, oh shit, my fairy resist is literally Rotom Heat and Tinkaton. That's it. And when you have a mon like Roaring Moon, and you have a mon like Great Tusk, fairy types are going to come. Even if fairy types are nerfed in this generation, in my opinion, fairy types are still going to come. So I decided to go with Colossal on the assumption that it would mainly be coming as the Terra. So whether that's Terra Fire to better take fairy types and not take like quad weakness to ground and water and getting rid of that, or coming as a water type to get the boost from whatever it's called, or also just to play bulky water, because right now my only other bulky water is Slowking, and I am of the belief that 2 waters are always great, as long as it's one attacker and one defender's not really a term, but like tank, like an offense and defense. You want both of those. So I'm always of that opinion. I don't know if that really works here, but I'm gonna say it does, because Slowking's, I'm considering Slowking more of like kind of a special attacker, just because of like all the nerfs it got and shit. So that's why. And then Colossal, just very bulky. On top of all that, it gets Stealth Rock, Spikes, and Spin, which is really nice, because if you count my hazard removal, I literally have no defoggers and 3 spinners, which Spin is amazing in this generation, so I'm really happy with that. Really happy with this team, honestly. I don't know how much I could have done to make it better, besides like obviously speed tiers, but I tried to fix that as best as possible. this is a very flawed team. I'm just gonna say it. Like my expectations are very low, just because I'm more so trying out Roaring Moon. That's what I really want to try out. Unfortunately, I believe this is the draft where I got tons of snipes or something, but that's draft league. That's really just draft league. So hopefully we can at least make playoffs. That's always my goal, is make playoffs. So hopefully that's at least done. But I don't really know. I don't know. I'll be prepping the same amount as I've been prepping for leagues, which is typically like an hour or an hour and a half. That's roughly what I've been doing. So I'll still be doing the same thing, but this team has some flaws. Is all I'll be saying. So I appreciate. Oh my god, I appreciate you guys watching this far. If you have, like, stuff. And yeah, hopefully I have a schedule set. Hopefully I can at least stay to it. Most of it, or at least 3 leagues, are going to be 2 weeks behind, which makes those so much easier, because it's literally just, I have time to, if I miss the recording, to record it in a timely manner, and I'm not really restricted or like feel rushed with making it. So I like that. But that's gonna wrap up this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time with week 1 of this league. So have a great day, and peace out.